Story 1. I paid them a crazy monthly fee just to cut my lawn and shovel the snow. I'm sure there was other stuff supposedly included, but I couldn't tell you what. One day, I come home from work and there's a crazy dent in my garage. Like somebody drove a car right into it. I was pretty upset about it to start, and a day or two later, I get a notice from the HOA that I have to repair my garage or they're going to start revoking my services until I, quote, bring it back to the standard of the neighborhood. Something like that. I'm not happy to start with. Insurance will cover it though, so I asked them to make a model of the door. Apparently, the company does not make it anymore, but the HOA insists on the same door. It's metal. I'm just so mad. So I take a hammer and I hammer it back to as close as possible of the original shape. But no, not good enough. I explain every step of the way and they keep insisting, so I cancel my monthly checks I gave them. If they aren't going to give me service, I'm not going to be a part of their payment association. So, my grass gets out of control and they start fining me somehow. I don't even know if that's legal. I'm starting to think about getting a lawyer. Then, magically, one day, I'm home from work early and I hear what sounds like a lawnmower and I go look. There's a guy cleaning up my yard. I ask him, what's up? And he says, I just got back from vacation, man, and sorry about your garage. I was just stupid and ran into it, you know. Had it in drive and gunned it when I should have had it in reverse. I was just excited because I was leaving for my trip that night. And the worst part is the guy told me he reported it to them. So they knew the entire time. And when the guy returned, I guess he missed the memo about not cutting my grass anymore. So I called them. I told them, well, I know. So what happens, they say they'll look into it. Next day, I get a notice that they're somehow canceling my fines, and my door is back up to code, even though it seriously looked like crap. But thing is, next week, a different guy shows up to cut my yard, and tells me the other guy got fired and he's not sure why. Yeah, I put my house up for sale almost right after that. Story number 2. I set up one of those mini leave a book, take a book library shelves by my mailbox, and the HOA tried to have it taken down. She kept trying to remove it, but nothing in the HOA prohibited it. And so there was a lot of back and forth, and at one point, she called her husband, who was apparently a cop, to come remove it, which he did, and then issued me a ticket for disorderly conduct. I then built a new bookshelf, put it on the curb the next day, where Officer Can't Mind Your Own Business proceeded to remove and dump it in the dumpster. I then tried filing a complaint with the city PD and the HOA, both of which just get ignored, and said a written notice would be given to the relevant people. After losing 4 bookshelves, I tried staking them to the ground, tying them down with sandbags, but they just pull them loose with tow ropes and vehicles. This went on for like 3 months before I just freaking gave up. Story number 3. We got fined by the HOA for leaving box fans in our window. To be clear, the box fan was inside the house behind a screen. Normally, they only care about what your exterior looks like, but this was on the inside of the house. To make matters worse, the window was at the back of the home, facing the woods. No other residents are even back there, so nobody could see it. And to prove that we actually did it, they took a photo, so some dude's job is to go around and take photos of the crime, even in the back of a property. My wife reads the HOA bylaws with extreme care and found that this was not prohibited. She went to the committee meeting and actually got the fine reversed. The committee said, and I quote, "You win for now, but we will be back soon changing the bylaws." That was 2 years ago and no changes have come. Story number 4. I kept having arguments with the local HOA lady. She was like 70 years old with a giant sequoia wedged up her saggy little butt. This skeletal demon kept sending me fines in the mail for things I didn't even do. Some drunk crashed through my front garden. Boom, $150 fine. Unkept yard 1 day after the incident. Boom. Went on a business trip, did not mow the lawn for 9 days. $100 fine. Boom. Lawn uncut. Some jerk parked on my lawn while I was on a business trip. Boom. $50 fine. Not parking on driveway or street. Neighbor did not mow the hill between our properties, which was technically his land. Boom. $150 fine. I mean, I tried taking the civil route and discussing the issues and false fines, but that freaking swamp lady would argue and throw a fit. I started mailing empty envelopes to the HOA with, quote, "blow it out your butt," written inside with a Sharpie. Eventually, 3 people from the HOA politely showed up at my house. I politely showed my itinerary and property lines, and they dropped the fines. As you can imagine, that girl was not with them. I had to correct a drainage issue in my yard. Poor grading caused by the water to pool at the foundation. I built a retaining wall and regraded the backyard myself to improve drainage. One day, I was sitting in my living room and I saw motion in my backyard. It was that lady, that freaking old lady. And she had a clipboard, a camera, you name it. She starts taking pictures behind my house. I went out and said, "Can I help you?" "Yeah, I'm from the HOA. "Okay, this is my property, please leave." "I can be here if I want." No, you can't. Leave now." At this point, she threatened to call the cops, and I was having a bad week. Bad month, really. I said, "Look, you withered husk. You have 2 options. You either get the heck off my property and return to wherever you came from, or I'm going to make you leave." She stomped her foot and gave me a constipated librarian look. I went inside, grabbed my 12 gauge, walked to the window, racked it. It was empty anyways, and she heard the and scampered off, probably peppering her granny panties with prune dust from 1994. 30 minutes later, the police showed up and asked if everything was okay. I explained that the crypt keeper was trespassing and she would not leave, so I racked an empty shotgun to make my point. Legal, not brandishing, well within my rights. One officer said, and I quote, "Hey man, that's a bit extreme. You're an athletic younger guy and she's a retired woman." My response to him was, "Have you ever seen that movie Legion?" Apparently, he got the reference and had to contain his laughter. They left. I never heard from her again, and I left that neighborhood a few years later. Story number 5. 2 of my friends, Rob and Keen. They were renting a condo from Ken's parents when we were all in college. This was just a run-of-the-mill, kind of run-down, no-frills condo complex, but it was part of an HOA. Though none of us were loud and we did not party. The main lady in charge, who dominated the association, hated the fact that college-age kids were living there. They were constantly pounding on my friend's door and pointing out every single violation, real and imagined, that they supposedly have committed. One time, my girlfriend, now wife, Ken, Rob, and Rob's then girlfriend, were all on the back porch having a cookout. Rob had one of those short charcoal grills, and after we ate, we were just sitting around the grill drinking some beers. Then the HOA lady walked up onto the porch and told Rob and Ken that fire pits were not permitted by the HOA. Rob points out, "Lady, it's a charcoal grill," which was permitted, and furthermore, he pointed out that the old lady had a very similar grill of her own. She said that hers was allowed because it had tall legs, whereas his was short, and so while, yes, it may be a grill, it's close enough in appearance to a fire pit and thus a violation of the agreement of the HOA. Rob countered that there's nothing in the HOA agreement that specified how tall the grill had to be, and that grill, it was completely safe and within compliance of the HOA. So, she should get off his porch right now. She demanded that we immediately put out the fire because as far as she was concerned, it's a fire pit, and she would report it if he did not comply. He finally told her to get the duck off the porch before she's trespassed. This was a bullcrap complaint and she knew it, so she finally left. Still threatening to report him. She probably did, but it didn't go anywhere. Story number 6. It's not about me, it's about my dad. He always went to the HOA meetings for reasons unknown. As time passed, less and less people in our neighborhood even cared to attend the meetings. After a couple of years in the neighborhood, only a few non-HOA board members actually attended the meetings. One year, 3 people on the board quit their jobs, so replacements had to be chosen. Mind you, replacements could only be chosen from people at the meeting. My dad was one of the 3 non-HOA members there, so he had to take a position. If he had just skipped the meeting like my mom and I told him to, he would not have to be HOA treasurer for 2 years. Story number 7. My first home, it was a townhome, had an HOA and I could not get out of there fast enough, and I knew to never own a property where an HOA's involved ever again. Your comments about the Weber grill remind me about one issue I had. We had the grill on the driveway. Could not have a grill on the deck because it was a fire hazard. Could not grill on the patio because the lower sliding door, it was just under the deck, which was also a fire hazard. Couldn't grill on the yard because it could imagine the damage of the lawn and landscaping. Couldn't grill on the front door and the sidewalk because who ducking knows why. So, we could only grill in the middle of the driveway, but not too far down or it would be close to the road. So, we just didn't grill. Story number 8. Wasn't a nightmare, but they were always wasting money. They decided to paint all the townhomes. Great, they needed it. But the painters came, covered all our windows with plastic, and went home for the hottest weekend in memory. And the paint was crap. Not even 2 years later, they decided to just re-side the units with metal siding, so the paint money was completely wasted. Also, they used to send nasty grams for me to trim a rose bush. It wasn't big, it was on my front walk and not in anyone's way.